Hi, and welcome everyone to the launch of the UNISON Cymru Wales manifesto for the Senedd elections. We've got some great speakers speaking at the webinar today, and also we've got some activists that will be taking part as well with regards to giving a message out for that. This has been a real awful 12 months for everyone, and I'm mindful of the difficulties we've had to deal with during the past year. But this has been set aside on top of the backdrop of 10 years of austerity, 10 years of cuts to public services. And it is fantastic that we're going to hear about a manifesto from UNISON today that's going to hopefully be part of the manifesto for the Welsh, hopefully we return a Welsh Labour government at the Senedd, and we're able to do some of the things in our manifesto that we feel as UNISON are important and essential to keep public services strong here in Wales. I'm going to make a warm welcome to Christina McAnea. Sorry, Christina, there's a bit of a mouthful there with regards to it. Christina, I would like to say, has become a friend, not just of UNISON Wales, but me personally too. In the short time we've known each other, we've got a good understanding and similar politics, and hopefully being the first female, I'm proud to say, General Secretary across UNISON, the largest, may I add, trade union in the UK. And I know that means a lot, but it certainly means a lot to UNISON, and we are proud that you were the first General Secretary to be a female, because it does set the standard and the set the bar, and hopefully there are many, many, many more female General Secretaries. Not that I'm wishing you away already before you've had the job too long, but it is important that over 70% of the workforce are females, and it is something that's important, and hopefully, like I said, that you go on strength for strength, and look forward to working with you in the next 12 months. So I'm now going to hand over to Christina to say a few words, and then we'll come back to you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave, and it's really great to be with you today. I'm sorry we can't be there in person, but I'm very honoured to have been asked. As you say, I'm the first woman General Secretary. I'm also the first Celt who's been the General Secretary. So, but I'm delighted to be here with and to share a stage with some of the other speakers who are here today. And in particular, it's great to see Karen here. But I'm really pleased, as you say, Dave, we've become friends over the past, few months, probably the past year, been in touch, talking about various issues, and we have become friends. And I'm honoured to be in the same platform as Neville, and I'm so looking forward to hearing what he'll be saying. But really proud to be sharing a platform with him. It goes without saying that these are very different times for everyone across Wales, and indeed the other UK nations. It's different in the way that we operate as a union, for the way in which elections will be conducted this year, and everything that takes place is doing so with COVID as the context. And it can't really be any other way, can it, given the impact that the pandemic has had on lives, on livelihoods, on the economy, job prospects, on education and mental health. But it does also add a particular focus to political campaigning. Clearly, elections won't be the same in 2021. There'll be no mass rallies, there'll be no knocking on doors. It will look and feel very different. But come the 6th of May, which is also, of course, the 6th election to the Senedd, it may also give us a louder voice. Quite rightly, our union's role throughout this pandemic has been strong. It's been high profile, and I'm incredibly proud of the way our union, and in particular our members, have responded to this pandemic. People know that we've been out there speaking up for our members, protecting our members, defending public services, and fighting inequality, an inequality that's become only too apparent during this pandemic. And I'm really glad to see this reflected in the themes of your Senedd manifesto, which I know Karen will address in more detail later. The elections take place not just against the backdrop of COVID though, but also, as you said in your introduction, Dave, following more than a decade of austerity driven by Tory-led Westminster government. And as a result in Wales, you can see and feel the impact. There are 33,000 fewer people working for councils in Wales. There are 530 fewer people working for the Welsh Government, and almost 4,000 fewer people employed by the Fire and Rescue Service. And these are all cuts that don't benefit our members, our services, or our communities. There's now a growing recognition that COVID has shone a light on the entrenched inequalities that exist and only made them worse. And this is exposed in the starkest terms in Wales. Counties such as Merthyr Tydfil and Rhondda Cynon Taf and neighbouring areas have had some of the highest mortality rates from COVID across the whole of the UK. Clearly a shocking statistic. There's a clear link between death rates, poverty and deprivation, because these are areas where there's a legacy of long-term unemployment, large numbers of people suffering from chronic health conditions, and people in jobs where they can't work from home and have to still go out and use public transport to get to work. And that pattern is reflected across the UK in other communities that face the same problems. These statistics are a damning indictment of the structural inequalities across our society. And they're another reason why these coming elections are so important. But thankfully, there's also a good news story to tell, because the Welsh Government has taken a very different approach to the Tories in Westminster, not just in response to COVID, but thankfully for many years beforehand. They've honoured their commitment to keep the Welsh NHS free from privatisation. They've legislated to disapply some of the key aspects of the Trade Union Act. And this will be really interesting because you've allowed 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in the elections. It'll be so interesting to see what happens there. And of course, critically for us as well, seeking to enshrine social partnership in law across Wales. But one of the most important things that I've seen come out from the Cymru Welsh Government has been the focus on seeking a national framework to improve the pay and conditions of care workers in Wales, and through that to improve the care service in Wales, something which I know the other UK nations will be watching very closely. And despite the financial constraints imposed by Westminster, the Welsh Government has continuously sought to put people before profit. You only have to look at things like track and trace, a great example of how the approach here has been so different, markedly different from what's happened in England. But it's also the time to look forward to a time when we're beyond the pandemic. Public services must be at the heart of our recovery. They have to be in a shape to withstand any future crisis, rather than being stripped to the bare bones. And that must mean that at its heart there's a workforce that's treated properly, valued properly, and fairly rewarded. And UNISON's manifesto outlines our priorities, how we can best achieve a recovery with equality at its heart that leaves no one behind. That's why we want to continue to work with a government. We want Cymru Wales Senedd that wants to work with us, which is why we need as many MS candidates as possible to sign up to our manifesto. And we need to ensure that we encourage our members to get the message out as widely as possible, to make sure that every vote counts and that every vote is about a vote for public services on the 6th of May. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I thought that's an important message that you put across with regards to getting everyone to sign up as many MSs as possible to make that commitment. Because if it's ever, the public have seen during the pandemic, if there's ever a greater need for strong public services in Wales, it is now. And like I said, we must reverse what has happened over the last 10 years, a generation of cuts. Thank you for taking the time out today, Christina, for coming along and being part of the launch, and thanks once again for the support to Cymru Wales. Diolch yn fawr, as they say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm now going to hand over to Karen Loughlin, who is our regional secretary, and Karen's going to take us through the manifesto. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Christina. And I think, Christina, it's good to follow from the whole context of why a manifesto is so important, that these elections on the 6th of May really do matter. And it's about, our manifesto is all focused about public services. So in Cymru Wales, we've got 3 priorities, and that is for a national care service for Wales, putting on the statute book social partnership, and an equality-led recovery. And that's why we want prospective Senate members to sign up to our manifesto, because that will underpin the future growth of Wales. So, I mean, you may ask, why will we call for a national care service for Wales? And I think, it's really important that we look at where we were before the pandemic. Social care was in a precarious situation before COVID-19, and that's a result of chronic underfunding, an unstable market, and workforce shortages. And the pandemic has just magnified these problems. At the beginning of the pandemic, there were some systemic failures in terms of the supply and distribution of PPE. There wasn't enough testing, and unfortunately, there's been high, devastating death rates in residential care in Wales. And this has been compounded by the behaviours of some employers, where they've refused to pay sick pay where workers have been isolating, shielding, and have tested positive for COVID. And our vision from UNISON is that this is now the time to move forward for a national care service. Profits should never be put before ahead of people. And an integrated and publicly delivered care system will benefit both the users and the care workers. What we've got to have is professional standards for those staff who are working in the care sector, and they've got to have the standards of pay to do that. They've got to have decent employment contracts that reflect sick pay, contracted hours, pay for all of the hours they work, travel time and sleep-ins, to allow their continued professional development. And the Welsh Government has got to fully fund this to ensure it is a proper national care service for Wales. And underpinning in that has to be the recognition of the trade unions in true partnership working, so that we are the workers' voice. And by doing this national care service, it is the only way to ensure that we've got true social partnership within the national care sector. And that moves us on to the next key area that we're talking about, social partnership. As Christina said before, Wales has been leading the way, and at the minute we've got the Social Partnership and Public Procurement Wales Bill out for consultation, and that is where social partnership will bring together trade unions, government and employers with the aim and design to implement better solutions for workers in Wales. True social partnership is the bedrock of fair work in Wales, and the only way to effectively promote fair procurement, a real living wage for all workers, stop the abuse of zero-hour contracts, and ensure all workers' rights are protected, especially since we've left Europe. The Welsh Government, by its own definition, says that fair work is where workers are rewarded, heard, represented, have secure work, are able to have a healthy and inclusive environment where all rights are respected. And as UNISON, we agree with that, and it underpins, and this could be groundbreaking legislation. The benefits, I think, we've seen them during the pandemic, where we've had social partnership that's had an all Wales risk assessment to make sure that it's safe for workers. And everyone's got to have a voice, and UNISON believes that through social partnership, this underpins it. And social partnership has been proven to facilitate the delivery of fairer work and more equal ways of working. And as a trade union, that has to underpin what we want for everyone working in Wales. So as I said, the consultation is out for the social partnership. UNISON, we're going to respond to that. We're doing a webinar and briefing session on Thursday, the 18th of March at 4 o'clock, and details will be out. And we will be responding, and we want people to respond to say it's got to be on the statute book, so that it doesn't matter. You know, we want a government in the Senate that is there for public services, but this is our opportunity to actually have something on the legislation bills that underpins it for any future government to come in. And then the third element that we're asking for within our manifesto is to ensure that the recovery is equality-led. The COVID pandemic has compounded the inequalities that already exist across Wales in our society as a whole. Women, Black people, young workers, people with learning and physical disabilities, and people living in deprived areas have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are very clear from UNISON that this is not a society that we want for the future. And so we must commit to make sure that the regrowth and the regeneration after this leaves nobody behind. So what do we mean by that? We want a society in Wales that puts people first, that pays workers their worth, have properly funded public services with good quality and readily available services, social housing, and a fair work nation. Workers across Wales deserve to be paid fairly for the work they do, and we believe every single worker delivering a public services should be paid the minimum, at least, of the real living wage, which currently sits at £9.50 an hour. In-work poverty should be a thing of the past. It is not acceptable in 2021 that we have in-work poverty where people are having to rely on food banks. Unfortunately, almost 1 in 3 children in Wales lives in relative income poverty, a figure that we worry will get worse as a result of the pandemic and the welfare reform. And every child in Wales must have access to decent education delivered through properly funded schools with provisions to provide support and include extra support within communities, because this pandemic has shown us how important communities are, and we must restore them. Austerity has already stripped Wales because of Westminster government of libraries. Some youth services have been slashed, and we need to redress that. And they're just a few examples of what we've lost to austerity. But actually, this is an opportunity for us. If we can get prospective Senate members to sign up to our manifesto and are committed to delivering good quality public services on an equality-led restoring of Wales after this pandemic, I know it can make a difference. And I think I just really want to echo, it's really important that people register to vote. It is difficult, and we do understand that people will be worried about voting in the pandemic, but you can actually register for postal votes, and that you've got to look at why we want people to sign up to our manifesto. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Just before I'm going to ask our live speaker to take part in the webinar, I think it's important that we listen to some of our frontline workers. And we've got some clips coming up from some of our frontline workers. Pat Jones, who's a care worker. We've got to listen to Mrs. Reeves, who's a school support member of staff. And we got John Tomlinson, who works for the NHS. So let's listen to a few of their sentiments with regards to working.
Hi, my name is Pat and I'm a care worker. I support the most vulnerable adults in the community, and I've worked throughout the pandemic in increasingly difficult and challenging conditions, all of this on minimum pay. This is not sustainable. What we need is investment in our service. We need better employment rights and conditions. We need recognition for the professional service that we provide. What we need is a national care service.
Hi, I'm Rachael. I'm a cover supervisor at a primary school in Cardiff. School support workers have been staffing schools throughout this pandemic, going into classrooms when others were protected at home. We're a key part of making schools a success, but we are undervalued as professionals. We need proper recognition and wages to reflect our vital roles.
Hi, my name's Jan. I'm a healthcare worker. 2020 saw us plunged into ways of working that none of us ever felt we'd see, caring for patients, caring for colleagues and caring for people in our communities. Clapping does not pay the bills. We need a properly funded NHS and we also need a proper pay offer, not the 1% derisory and derogatory offer that Boris and his team feel appropriate to offer us.
Thank you, Pat, Michelle and Jan. Those were powerful words, and I'm sure they will resonate with not just other UNISON members, but the public, and hopefully the MS at the MS elections and the support they'll have for our manifesto. I'm now going to ask our next speaker to speak to us with regards to the manifesto. He's a long-time friend now, as well as being a UNISON activist. He's also a steward in Blaenau Gwent, and he plays an active role within the branch. And also, people will know him for his legendary football duties with regards to Everton. And when I say legendary, he is a legend, and I'd like to pass over to Neville Southall.
Thanks, Dave, and it's great to be here this afternoon. I think, look, elections, you've got a choice. You believe in the people of Wales or you don't. And you have to believe in the people of Wales because that's the thing that keeps this country going. It hasn't been Boris, he's been the problem. It hasn't been the Tories. They're disgusting, disgraceful people. We have to get back to some sort of politics where we have a fair society. And a fair society means that everybody gets treated with respect and dignity. I take care workers. My wife was recently a care worker. I think she got 35 pence for the petrol and £3.80 when she was with a client for a time. That's no minimum wage. That's extortion. Going to see people who have probably both got dementia in the house living together because there is no funding for anything else. I work in a school. Why should we have to have black and white stuff? Why can't the kids see things in colour? What is it so bad that we have to make a choice between black and white photocopying and colour photocopying? Where's the equality in anywhere in any of the schools? Where's it in any of the public services? The NHS, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, the NHS. How can you turn around and give somebody a 1% pay rise? It's an absolute disgrace. If we're going to have a fair society, then we put the nurses and the NHS at the top and the politicians at the bottom, because the politicians work for us. And if we want a fair society, then that means we've got to believe. And we have to believe in change, because there's a dark cloud hanging over Wales, and it's sat in Westminster, and we need to get rid of them eventually. But we can make it a new way of doing things in Wales, a new way of giving everybody equality, giving all the kids back their dreams, their hopes, and looking after the older ones with dignity and giving them respect and making them safe. And I don't think we do any of that at the moment because we can't fund it properly. I know I'm a foster carer as well, and if you look at the way the foster carers are paid, I think I worked out today it's something like £1.50 an hour. You know, it's a big responsibility. You don't do it for the money. You don't do nursing for the money really, but everyone still has to pay bills. I work in a special school. We know what the restrictions are. The mental health side of it is an absolute disgrace. How long do you wait? Well, some people wait 3 years for an autism diagnosis. 3 years. What are you supposed to do in that 3 years? At the moment, it's the most unequal society I've ever met and ever been involved in. We need to bring back things like the leisure centres should be free, because we need kids out we need kids off the streets. We need to look at new ways of doing youth clubs, because the old ways are not pulling them in. We've got to listen to our youth. The public service is the most important thing in Wales at the moment, I think. You know, you need your transport, you need your police, you need your cleaners, you need everybody, and they need to pull together. But most of all, we need a proper leader. And what I mean by a proper leader is we get the people in power and we push through what we need to push through, which is to make this the most fairest society we possibly can. When you think of England, you think of the north and the south. When you think of Wales, you think of the valleys and the trees and the scenery. Well, the most important thing in Wales is the people. So if we've got the best people in the world, which we have, then we have to invest in them people. We have to make sure that they reach their full potential. Every time you make a cut somewhere, whether it be to a bus driver or to a school, it's killing the kids' ambition. It's killing the kids' dreams. We must fund everything properly, because if we don't, we're not going to get the people that we deserve in this country, and the people won't get what they deserve, which is to reach their full potential. And if you can't reach your full potential, I think that's absolutely criminal. And what we've got in the Tories is people who stifle creativity, they stifle kids' dreams, they stifle people's hopes, they cut their mortgages, they do everything they possibly can to make sure that you are still well below them so they can control us. We need a society where everybody's involved in making decisions. We know what it's like. Everybody should be safe to go out on the streets. Everybody should be having access to mental health, because in 2 years' time there's going to be a big swell of mental health because of the pandemic. I think the one good thing about a pandemic, if there's anything, it's brought communities together. But while we've got communities together and they all work together and they all look after each other, surely if we could fund them communities properly and make them self-sufficient, it would be far better than what we're doing now. And I think the inequality starts with the least amount of money that England can give us, the least amount of money that the Tories can give us. And what we need to do is fight there to make sure we get a fair slice of the cake. And then we need to make sure that we look after our people, because I think in any society, you're only as good as your people. And if we don't have outstanding people and we don't look after our people, well, we're not going to have an outstanding country. We've got a beautiful, beautiful country. We've got some of the best things in the world when you look at the scenery. And we've got some of the best people in the world. But underneath all of that, the inequality for everybody. That's why I'm great. It's lovely to see Christina here, because I think that's a great step for UNISON. Having a lovely woman in charge of us, I think it's great. And I think we need more women in power, and we need to make it not because it's a woman, because it's the best person for the job. So if we're giving more women opportunities, then it's up to them to make sure that they're the best for the job. And I think what we need in society is an equal opportunity for everybody, because when you walk into a job, it shouldn't be because of your colour, because of your sexuality, because of anything. It's because you're the best at doing that job. And I also think the only reason why I joined UNISON is because UNISON's a family, and if you hurt one, you hurt everybody. And I think UNISON reflects a fair society, and if we could run the country like we run UNISON, I think we'd have half a chance of getting out of this mess. And that's all I've got to say, really. Just my rant.
Thank you, Nev. As always, said with passion, but obviously and sincerity. And I do thank you and your knowledge. And I don't think any one of us could have put it better ourselves. I could see a lot of nodding ears and a lot of people agreeing with you. I just wanted to put it out there that today's notes in the grab bar, you can grab a number of things from the grab bar today. You can get letters to your MS, your potential MS, giving you the ideas of how to write to your MS. Obviously, the manifesto can be got there, and also you can use our website, the Cymru Wales Unison website. That's a source of information, a wealth of information with regards to today's manifesto and the plans moving forward with regards to keeping strong public services. I'd also like to take this time to thank everyone for taking part today in the launch. It is so important. I know the successes the next 4 or 5 years is going to be critical for public services. And I call on everyone today to make sure you register to vote and make your vote count, and make sure to hold the MSs to account with regards to their intentions, because it is so important. Without public services, without strong public services, you can see the mess that we would have been in during this pandemic, on a shoestring, trying to operate, the frustrations. People, as Neville said earlier on, we deserve better. We need strong public services in Wales, and I hope you will make sure you use your vote and get out there and vote. Thank you once again for taking part, and I look forward to working with you all soon. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thanks, everyone.